You didn't choose this life. Not all of it. Not the job you show up to every Monday like a machine that forgot how to stop. Not the relationship you stay in because leaving would look like failure. Not the version of yourself you perform at dinner tables, at family gatherings, in every room where someone is watching. Somewhere, a long time ago, you started following a script you never wrote. And every time you scroll instead of sleep, every time you binge instead of build, every time you fantasize about disappearing into some other city, some other job, some other name, that's not weakness. That's a message. Your mind is trying to tell you something it can't say out loud yet. Who chose this? Not the small stuff, the big stuff. The career you introduce yourself with at parties. The partner you built a whole future around. The house, the schedule, the version of success you've been chasing since you were 22 years old. Somewhere in there, a decision got made. And you may not even remember making it. Maybe it happened at 14 when you learned which parts of you got praised and which parts got the silent treatment. Maybe it happened later, in a hallway conversation you've long forgotten, when someone you respected raised an eyebrow at your real plan and you quietly picked a safer one instead. You weren't weak in that moment. You were a kid or a young adult, doing what every human does, adapting to survive the room you were in. The problem isn't that adaptation happened. The problem is that most people never go back and check which adaptations are still necessary 20 years later, in a room that no longer exists. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly where that decision was made, and who was really in the room when it happened. And it starts with a name for that room, and for the version of you that learned how to survive it. Carl Jung spent his life studying one question most people never ask. Not, how do I fix myself? Not, how do I get better? This one, who is actually living your life? You or the mask you built to survive it? Jung had a name for that mask. He called it the persona. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how much of your life is persona, and how much is actually you. This isn't about quitting your job tomorrow. It's about finally seeing the difference between a life you built and a life you were handed. Because escape fantasies don't come from nowhere. They come from somewhere very specific. And once you see where, you can't unsee it. Stay with this one because it goes deeper than most videos about finding yourself. This one is about who put the mask on you in the first place, and why you kept it on for so long. Jung didn't build his psychology in a lecture hall, disconnected from real suffering. He built it in a consulting room, sitting across from real people, decade after decade, watching the same story repeat itself in 100 different disguises. A story about people who did everything right, and still felt like strangers inside their own lives. If any part of that sounds familiar, keep watching. Because the next few minutes are going to name exactly what's happening, using ideas Jung spent his life developing, not vague motivational language. And it starts with the mask itself. The one you've been wearing for so long, you probably forgot it was ever put on. Let's start with the question already sitting in your chest. Who chose this? Not in some abstract, philosophical way. Literally. Who chose your career, your college major, the city you live in, the person across the table from you every night? Jung would ask you to trace it back. Not to blame anyone. Just to see clearly. Because most people build their entire adult life out of other people's expectations. Parents who needed you to be successful so they could feel like good parents. A culture that told you safety matters more than meaning. A society that rewards the mask and quietly punishes the face underneath it. Jung called this mask the persona, from the Latin word for the masks actors wore in Greek and Roman theater. It's not fake exactly. It's necessary at first. You need a persona to function in the world, to hold a job, to be polite to a stranger, to fit into a room full of people you'll never see again. The problem isn't that you have one. The problem is when you forget you're wearing it. When the mask becomes the only face you know. Jung watched this happen over and over in his clinical work in Zurich. Successful people. Respected people. People who looked from the outside like they had figured life out. And underneath, a quiet, persistent emptiness they couldn't explain. He treated patients in midlife who came to him with no obvious crisis. No addiction. No broken marriage. No diagnosis that fit neatly on paper. Just a creeping sense that their own life had become a stranger's. That was often the persona talking, or rather, the silence left behind when the persona had taken over completely. A person can win by every external measure, and still feel like they're watching their own life from behind glass. That feeling isn't a malfunction. It's a signal. Jung warned about exactly this across his work on the structure of the psyche. A person who identifies completely with the persona, he said, loses touch with their own individuality. Sit with that for a second. You can lose touch with yourself simply by playing a role for too long. And here's the part that should genuinely disturb you. Most people don't lose their real self in one dramatic moment. They lose it one small compromise at a time. One career choice made to please a parent. One relationship kept alive out of guilt. One dream quietly buried because it wasn't practical. Think about the version of you that existed before any of that. The kid who wanted to build things or write things or travel, or simply be loud in a way the adults around them didn't approve of. Where did that version go? It didn't disappear. It got negotiated away piece by piece in exchange for approval. By the time you're 30, 40, 50, you're not living a life. You're maintaining a performance. And performances, eventually, exhaust the performer. Think about the last argument you avoided just to keep things smooth. Think about the career fair, the family dinner, the moment someone asked, "So what do you actually want to do with your life?" And you gave the answer that made everyone comfortable instead of the one that was true. That's the persona running the show. Not because you're dishonest. Because somewhere along the way, honesty stopped feeling safe. And a mask that keeps you safe is very, very hard to take off voluntarily. But here's what most people never ask, and it's the question that actually breaks the mask open. If the persona is what you show the world, what have you been hiding from yourself this entire time? Before we go further, sit with that for 1 second. Not to feel bad. To feel honest. Something in your chest just tightened. That's information, not weakness. Write down, right now, one decision in your life that wasn't really yours. Just one. Maybe it's the job. Maybe it's the relationship. Maybe it's smaller than that, a hobby you gave up, an opinion you stopped voicing, a version of your personality you learned to mute because it made someone else uncomfortable. You don't have to change it today. You only have to admit it exists. Subscribe if you want to keep tracing this thread with me, because what comes next is where it gets uncomfortable, and where it actually gets useful. So if the persona is the mask, what's underneath it? Jung had an answer for that too. He called it the shadow. Not evil. Not some monster hiding in the basement of your mind. The shadow is simply everything you were never allowed to be. Every desire that didn't fit the role you were assigned. Every anger you were told to swallow. Every dream that didn't match the family's plan for you. It doesn't disappear when you suppress it. Jung was clear about this. What you don't consciously deal with doesn't vanish. It goes underground. And it comes back out sideways. This is where your escape fantasies come from. The procrastination that eats your evenings. The doom scrolling at 1 a.m. when you should be asleep and instead you're watching strangers live lives that look nothing like yours. The drink, the shopping cart, the daydream you'd never admit out loud. None of that is random. It's the shadow looking for a door. Notice the pattern in your own escapes. What do you fantasize about when you're bored or tired or lying awake at 2 a.m.? Freedom, usually. Somewhere unscheduled. Someone honest. That's not a character flaw showing up. That's the part of you, the persona left outside, knocking to be let back in. Because the parts of you that got rejected don't stop existing. They just stop asking permission. Think about the last time you fantasized about disappearing. Quitting the job. Moving somewhere no one knows your name. Starting over as someone else entirely. That fantasy was never about the new city. It was about the old you, the one buried under 20 years of persona, trying to breathe again. Jung himself lived through a version of this, and it's one of the most documented periods of his life. After his break from Freud in 1913, Jung entered years of intense inner turmoil. He described it later as a confrontation with his own unconscious, a period where the roles he had built, respected doctor, rising star of psychoanalysis, quietly collapsed, and something more honest had to be found underneath. He didn't run from that collapse. He wrote it down. He drew it. He built an entire private practice of facing what surfaced. Out of that period came the core of everything he's known for today. The lesson isn't have a breakdown. The lesson is this: what you refuse to look at doesn't go away. It waits. And it doesn't wait quietly. It shows up as the argument you can't explain, the sadness that arrives on a perfectly good day, the restlessness that no amount of vacation ever seems to fix. You can medicate the shadow. You can outrun it for years, even decades. But it keeps knocking in smaller and smaller disguises until it's finally let in. Most people spend their entire lives running from the one part of themselves that could actually set them free. And here's the uncomfortable twist most people never see coming. The very thing you're running from, your intelligence, is often the thing helping you run. Here's where this gets uncomfortable for a lot of smart people watching right now. Because intelligence and consciousness are not the same thing. You can be brilliant, and still be completely asleep inside your own life. Jung didn't measure a person's development by how much they knew. He measured it by how much they had faced. You can have a high IQ and still let your mother choose your career through guilt. You can ace every exam, build the impressive resume, give the confident answer in every meeting, and still build a marriage designed entirely around avoiding your father's disapproval. Intelligence is a tool. Consciousness is a direction. And here's the trap, the one that catches sharp minds more than anyone else. Intelligence gets used to justify staying asleep. Smart people rarely say, "I'm scared to change." They build arguments instead. "It's not the right time. I have responsibilities. This is just how adult life works." Every one of those sentences might be true. And every one of them can also be a well-built cage engineered by a very intelligent architect. Your own mind. Picture the version of you sitting across from a job offer that pays well but means nothing. The rational mind steps in immediately. Stability. Benefits. What would people think if you turn this down for something uncertain? Every single reason sounds mature. Every single reason is also, quietly, fear wearing a suit. And the more articulate you are, the more convincing that suit looks, to you most of all. This is why some of the most together people you know are also some of the most stuck. Not because they lack insight. Because their insight has been recruited to defend the very cage it should be examining. Think of the friend who can explain, in perfect eloquent detail, exactly why they're still in a job that drains them. The reasoning is airtight. The delivery is confident. And underneath all of it, if you listen closely, is a person negotiating with their own fear, using the sharpest tool they have, their intelligence. That's not a flaw unique to your friend. It's how every over-explained decision in your own life probably sounds, to someone standing outside of it. Notice how rarely a truly free decision needs a long explanation at all. "I want it" is usually enough. The longer the justification, the more likely it's covering for something the mind doesn't want to name out loud. The mind is extremely good at protecting the persona, even from its own owner. That's not stupidity. That's intelligence working overtime in service of comfort instead of truth. And that same reasoning doesn't stop at the individual. It scales. It becomes something much bigger than one person defending one bad decision. Because the moment enough people are defending the same comfortable lie, it stops looking like a lie at all. And this is exactly how mass mentality gets its grip. Jung wrote about it directly in one of his final major works, The Undiscovered Self, published in 1957. He was warning, at the height of the Cold War, about what happens to individual judgment inside a mass society. Not because people are dumb. Because thinking for yourself is exhausting, and belonging is easy. When everyone around you has made the same compromises you have, those compromises stop feeling like compromises. They start feeling like normal life. Your smart, rational mind looks around, sees millions of people living the exact same disconnected, performance-based existence, and quietly concludes, "This must just be how it is." That's not evidence. That's consensus. And consensus is not the same thing as truth. Jung called the pull toward the group participation mystique, a kind of psychological merging, where an individual's own judgment quietly dissolves into the mood of the collective. It feels safe. Feels like belonging. But it comes at a cost. The cost is you. Your intelligence, instead of questioning the script, starts defending it. And the smarter you are, the better you get at defending a life you never actually chose. Look around at your own life for a second. How many of your opinions, about success, about money, about what a good life even looks like, did you actually examine? And how many did you simply absorb, the way you absorbed a language without ever noticing you were learning it? Most people never ask that question because the crowd doesn't ask it either. And a room full of people who all agree with each other feels, powerfully, like proof. It isn't proof. It's just a lot of people borrowing certainty from one another so no one has to carry the weight of thinking alone. Jung wasn't naive about how difficult this is to resist. He watched entire societies swept into movements built on exactly this mechanism, individuals dissolving into the crowd until the crowd, not any single person, made every decision. That's an extreme version. But the same mechanism runs quietly through ordinary life, in the career you didn't question, The wedding you didn't want to have that big, the opinions you repeat at dinner because everyone else in the room already agrees. The mass doesn't announce itself. It just feels from the inside like common sense. Ask yourself, honestly, the last time you disagreed with a room full of people and said so out loud. Not online where disagreement is cheap and anonymous. In person. At work. At the family table. If the answer is, I can't remember, that's not a personality trait. That's participation mystique quietly running your social life for you. It's not dramatic when it happens. It's a small, quiet erosion, one unspoken agreement at a time, until your own opinions start to feel like someone else's handwriting. And the moment you finally step out of that agreement, even once, something happens that nobody warns you about. So what happens when someone breaks that pattern? When someone starts asking the question this whole video is built around, who chose this, and actually starts choosing differently, they get punished for it. Not always loudly. Sometimes just with distance. A friend who suddenly seems irritated by your new boundaries. A parent who calls your growth selfish. A partner who liked the old, predictable version of you much better. Jung had an explanation for this too, and it's one of his most important ideas. He called it shadow projection. People who haven't faced their own buried parts will often see them reflected in you instead. When you start living with more honesty, more autonomy, more distance from other people's expectations, you become a mirror. And most people don't like what they see in that mirror. So instead of asking, why does their freedom bother me? They attack the mirror. You've changed. You think you're better than us now. You used to be so easy to be around. None of that is really about you. It's about the parts of them that are still asleep, reacting to someone who woke up first. Think of it this way. A person who has made peace with their own unlived life doesn't feel threatened watching someone else live theirs. They cheer for it. They ask questions. They want details. They feel inspired, not exposed. You've probably met someone like that. Someone genuinely happy for a friend's reinvention with no edge in their voice, no need to talk them out of it. That's what an integrated shadow looks like from the outside. Nothing left to defend, so nothing left to project. But a person still trapped inside their own persona, still avoiding their own shadow, experiences your freedom as an accusation. Even if you never say a single word about their choices. Your simple, quiet difference is enough to unsettle them. Here's how it usually plays out. You make one small, honest choice. You stop over-explaining yourself. You say no without a paragraph of justification attached. And the people most upset by it are rarely the ones who are also asleep and comfortable with it. They're the ones who are asleep and quietly, painfully aware that they are. Your calm is what disturbs them. Not your words. Your calm. Because your calm is proof that the discomfort they're avoiding is survivable. There's a strange kindness hidden in this if you can see it. The people projecting onto you aren't your enemies. They're asleep the same way you were asleep before something in you finally woke up. You don't owe them a performance of the old self, just to keep them comfortable. But you also don't have to hate them for missing you. Both things can be true at once. That's what makes this so hard and so honest. This is one of the most predictable patterns in psychology. And almost nobody sees it happening in real time, while it's happening to them. What almost nobody sees either, is what happens next once the mirror stops being the scariest part. Now here's the part Jung called the hardest and the most necessary work of the human psyche. Individuation. It's not a self-help buzzword. It's the lifelong process of becoming who you actually are, underneath the persona, integrated with the shadow instead of ruled by either one. And Jung was honest about something most people don't want to hear. Individuation is lonely. Not because something is wrong with you. Because you're changing the rules of every relationship that was built around the old version of you. Picture a dinner table. The same family dinner you've sat at for years. Everyone at that table has an unspoken agreement about who you are. The quiet one. The people pleaser. The one who never pushes back. The peacekeeper who smooths over every argument before it starts. For years you kept that agreement because breaking it felt more dangerous than staying invisible. The moment you sit up straighter, disagree once, say what you actually think instead of what keeps the peace, you can feel the temperature in the room change. Nobody has to say a word. A fork pauses halfway to someone's mouth. A glance gets exchanged across the table. The silence does it for them. That discomfort you feel isn't failure. It's the sound of an old identity dissolving in real time, in front of the very people who depended on it staying the same. This is why independent thought is dangerous to a system built on conformity. A person who thinks for themselves is harder to predict, harder to guilt, harder to manipulate. Every system built on people staying small runs into trouble the moment one person stops shrinking. A boss who relies on your insecurity to keep you compliant. A relationship that depends on your fear of being alone to keep you quiet. A family dynamic that only works as long as one person keeps absorbing everyone else's discomfort. None of those systems are evil exactly, but every one of them needs you asleep to keep functioning the way it always has. The moment you wake up even a little, the whole arrangement has to renegotiate itself. That's why individuation rarely feels like freedom at first. It feels like conflict. Jung believed that a person who has genuinely integrated their own shadow, instead of projecting it onto others, becomes almost impossible to control. That's the price of individuation. Not punishment. Price. You trade easy belonging for real autonomy. And most people, if they're honest, would rather keep the illusion of belonging than pay that price. Jung himself paid it. When he broke from Freud, he didn't just lose a colleague. He lost an entire professional identity, a movement built partly around him, friendships that never recovered. For a while he was, by his own account, deeply alone in it. But that isolation wasn't the end of the story. It became the foundation of everything he built afterward. Not because isolation is magic. Because he stopped needing the old room to approve of who he was becoming. That's the actual shift. Not, no one likes me anymore. I no longer need them to in order to know who I am. The question this video keeps circling back to isn't really about your job, or your relationship, or your city. It's this: are you willing to lose the comfort of being predictable in exchange for finally being real? Not everyone at that dinner table will lose you. Some relationships survive individuation, and actually get stronger because they were never built on the mask in the first place. But some won't. And that's not a tragedy to be avoided at all costs. It's simply the cost of finally sitting at the table as yourself, instead of as the character everyone got used to. So if the price is real, and the loneliness is real, what's actually on the other side of paying it? None of this means you have to burn your life down tomorrow. Individuation done right isn't arrogance. It isn't isolation. It isn't looking down at everyone still asleep at the table. Jung himself warned against exactly that, mistaking awareness for superiority. A person who wakes up and immediately starts looking down on everyone still asleep hasn't actually integrated anything. They've just built a new, more sophisticated persona, the persona of the enlightened one. The goal was never to escape other people. It was to stop escaping yourself. So here's the choice, the same one Jung kept circling back to across decades of his work. You can keep living the life other people chose for you, comfortable, predictable, quietly exhausting. Or you can start asking, in every decision from here forward, who is actually choosing this? Not to blow up your life, just to finally live it. The mask kept you safe for a long time. It's not your enemy, but it was never supposed to be your whole face. You don't need a plan for the rest of your life to start this. You just need one honest answer to one question today. The next time someone asks what you want, don't reach for the safe answer. Reach for the true one, even if it's smaller, even if it's messier, even if it takes you a while to say it out loud without flinching. That's where individuation actually starts. Not in some dramatic reinvention. In one honest sentence, spoken by the face underneath the mask. It will feel small the first time. It will feel small the second time too. But every honest sentence makes the next one easier, and every easy one starts pulling the mask further from your skin. That's the entire process in practice. Not a single dramatic unveiling, but 1,000 small refusals to keep performing a life someone else assigned you. One day you'll notice the mask feels looser. Then one day you'll realize you're not reaching for it anymore. Not because you fought some final dramatic battle against the mask. Because you simply stopped needing it one honest day at a time. So, who chose this? And more importantly, starting today, who's going to choose what comes next?